Hey everyone, Renee here. Before we start the CrackBerry podcast, I just wanted to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Audible. Visit audiblepodcast.com/CrackBerry for a free audiobook download. Hit it, guys.
CrackBerry.com.
Welcome to the CrackBerry Podcast, episode 083 for Friday, March the 30th, 2012.
Hey, everybody. Kevin here for CrackBerry.com. It has been forever since we've done a podcast, but today is the day because, we have some big news happened. Yesterday was RIM's earnings report, Q4 fiscal 2012, their year-end report. So we're going to talk on that in depth this morning and go over some of the other news and things that we haven't talked about in lieu of any recent podcasts. So on the show today, Adam Zeiss.
Hello.
We've got Chris Umiastowski with us, who's been doing a great job on some of the financial reactions and opinion. And then we've got Craig Johnston, our beloved BlackBerry enterprise expert, who's way too busy writing all his books and traveling the world and all those kinds of things. So it's nice to have you on the show, Craig, because we haven't had you on as much as we've wanted as of late.
Thank you, Kevin, and hi, everybody. It's good to be back.
So this show's going to be an hour max, so we just have to jump into it. Earnings call, that's the topic of the day. I mean, it's fresh. A lot of things have been happening. Umi, let's turn it over to you. Give the recap, and then let's get into what it all means.
Well, the recap of last night was another very weak set of financial results and outlook out of RIM. As we've known for a while, we're waiting for BlackBerry 10, and things are getting worse before they're going to get better. We just don't know how bad things are going to get. They're still losing subscribers in the U.S. That said, though, they did manage to add 2 million global subscribers to their base. So they're now up to 77 million. They're doing over 4 billion in revenue, but it was down 19% sequentially, I think was the number. So they're making money. They're not making very much money compared to what their peak was. They're losing subscribers in the US, which is their high value user base. And it looks like they're not confident enough in their own ability to predict demand going forward, particularly in the United States. So they've stopped giving financial guidance, or at least specific quantitative financial guidance. And we're going to be waiting a couple of quarters at least, guys, right? And then we have to talk about, when BlackBerry 10 rolls out. Does that mark a change for RIM instantly, or do they need a couple of quarters of rollout before they come back and gain share? So there's a whole bunch of stuff, obviously, they talked about. Let's dive into it.
Okay, so first question right there, just on the guidance. Is that a normal practice for companies when they, what normally happens? Is this an odd thing for RIM to do or an expected thing for RIM to do?
So for RIM specifically, they have a habit of giving guidance every single quarter. For years and years and years, they used to give 2 quarters worth of guidance. And so the trend has for years been to give less information and not more. I know there's a lot of institutional money managers who would look at them and say, hey, look, why are you saying anything? You should say nothing. Apple doesn't give as much guidance as you guys do. Peel it back. And they did start peeling it back when things were getting rough. First of all, they stopped giving 2 quarters of guidance a long time ago, with the exception of last year. If you remember, they guided for a full year, which was a huge mistake because they had to pull back that full year guidance again and again. Then they stopped giving subscriber guidance, ASP guidance, ARPU guidance, all of that kind of stuff they stopped talking about. And now finally, they've pulled the plug on everything. I would say from a stock market perspective, it's not normal for companies to make dramatic changes in their guidance practice unless there's something happening in the business to warrant it. And in the case of RIM, something is definitely going on to warrant it. They're better off saying nothing.
So, I've been finding it pretty interesting to watch the news, last night, even this morning, the recaps. And it's amazing. I mean, from my perspective, nothing honestly changed from yesterday to today. As you said, Chris, we already know what the predicament RIM's in. The last quarter, we knew it wasn't going to be great. I mean, RIM is they're in a position where they need to keep the RIM boat afloat by riding on the BlackBerry 7 and service revenue streams. Oh my God, that was a pretty brilliant analogy. Because that's kind of the case, right? And those streams are going down. But as long as they can keep the rim boat afloat a couple more quarters, BlackBerry 10 is their chance to re-kickstart and start some growth again. So nothing's changed from yesterday to today on that. Yet, last night, obviously, you start to see the end of the world stories happening. Some of it comes back down to, I guess, not misquotes, but short-sighted reporting from a lot of the media. I mean, all of a sudden, the RIM earnings call is still on yesterday, and Thorsten Heins, there, the RIM CEO, had a quote about, well, we're going to focus on enterprise and what we do well, which everybody took to mean as RIM's going to quit focusing on consumers and just concede it to Android and Apple altogether. And that was reported. It is still being reported right now, which is kind of ridiculous.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
And we've already seen RIM's approach, right? BlackBerry Balance. This is their way to try to build a device, BlackBerry 10 delivering a great consumer experience that's still enterprise friendly. It's just weird how the media is even reacting. I mean, one thing that Adam saw yesterday, which we found quite hilarious, was TechCrunch. 2 hours or an hour before the earnings came out, TechCrunch accidentally posted their story about RIM's earnings and the analysis that went with it. And then they unpublished it, but we already read it, as well as a ton of people on Twitter here. And then it got republished, I think, today or last night again. But it was like, really? It's like people already know the stories they want to tell before they're telling them. And I'm like, all right, but I think there's some short-sighted media reporting going on here, which just gets worse and worse. And if people actually opened their eyes and looked at the full story, nothing's changed. So to say RIM is dead today versus yesterday, I just don't get it. If anything, there's less of a reason, because we've seen some senior management shakeups that make sense. Jim Balsillie retires. I think, Chris, you predicted to me earlier that Jim would last until the summer. So he retired early.
yeah, he did. A little earlier than I thought he would. But, it makes sense. I wanted to say this, last quarter, or not last quarter even, when Thorsten took over, when he got the CEO job, everybody said, oh, come on, is he really in control? Is he really the boss of RIM? And he said, yes, I am, right? Well, I think he just proved it.
Absolutely. Other major organizational changes. So David what is it? I always say it wrong. Yaw is gone, but we already knew he was kind of in a working retirement there, right?
No question.
That came back to even some of the exits RIM had previously with guys like Tyler Lessard and Mike Kirkup. You kind of knew all that BlackBerry OS division was getting rebuilt on the QNX side. And, you're either with the new or you might as well leave with the old. And I think David Yaw leading that BBOS group was just setting up for this. So, he's into retirement now. Other big shakeups, it was the COO, right? Jim Rowan.
Jim Rowan, yeah. That was a surprise to me. I did not expect his departure.
So now, I haven't even had time to dig into this as deep as I want, but he was the previous COO beside Thorsten. Was that kind of the way it happened for a long time?
Yeah, he was the supply chain COO, and Thorsten was software and devices.
Okay, so that's kind of interesting. So that's going to leave a gap until they must have a plan to address that, right?
Yeah. They've said they want to hire a singular COO to take over the global operations, and I suspect RIM's strategy is to thin out the number of devices they're making, maybe consolidate among fewer contract manufacturers, and then not need two separate COOs.
Sure. And then what was the other? There's one other one we heard. I heard this morning through the old grapevine. It sounds like Alan Brenner, who was the senior VP on software.
He was his title, at least last time I checked, was SVP of the BlackBerry platform.
Right, which is a pretty high up there role that apparently he's left RIM. And I don't know exactly the full story there. I don't think RIM's really talked about it yet publicly and what that means. But that's interesting. I mean, Alan's somebody who's talked to us. I've talked to him numerous times over the years. So I'll be curious to kind of dig into that and what sort of shakeup it means. But again,
I think, it gives us some clear hints that what Thorsten's talking about in terms of partnership doesn't necessarily involve as much being done on the BlackBerry platform internally, right? Core features, building beautiful devices and then partnering.
Yeah. So, things have changed obviously between yesterday and today, but strategy side leading up until BlackBerry 10, nothing's really changed. And these operational changes, I don't think there's a bad thing there. So, I mean, to me, it's kind of like, wow, today RIM's less dead than they were yesterday. I mean, nothing was really that surprising from what got announced and I think what we've been expecting. It's been interesting too. We had an article this week. I said I dream of BlackBerry 10 phones, and again, that article was spurred by two things. One, I spent a couple of weeks in the States, and when I go to the States, I take my BlackBerry with me, which is roaming on Rogers. This is my beautiful Porsche 9981, and then I have a second phone, which is a US line, and I've been rocking for that an AT&T iPhone 4S. So for 2 weeks, I'm carrying both phones on me the whole time. And it's interesting because, again, it really, if you want a no-compromise mobile solution today, you need to carry two phones. The BlackBerry communication experience is just so much more efficient and better between the blinking red light. Yes, the keyboard's part of it too, but even without the keyboard, just the way the BlackBerry experience works. Quick on, quick off, do what I got to do, put the phone away. And then you have the iPhone, which, is great for those stop and use experiences. So when I really need to stop and do something, or I find, Google Maps and that is bigger, obviously on the bigger screen, that's where I like the iPhone. But really, I feel like to get the best of both worlds today, you still need two devices. And to me, it just made me realize how excited I am for BlackBerry 10, because I really think that could be the first mobile device where having one phone, I can really get the best of both worlds, communication, productivity, and the app experience on one thing. So I'm really jazzed for it. And then, our friend Al Sacco on CIO this week wrote a nice article about the case for, making the case for carrying two phones. And it was the same thing. It all goes back to that smartphone hierarchy of needs. And if you want a no compromise mobile experience, today you need two phones. I think BlackBerry 10 can address that. So I'm really excited for BlackBerry 10 more than ever. Obviously, though, the state of the company, things need to come together for BlackBerry 10 to have that chance of a real success. The hardware has to rock, the software has to rock, the app gap has to be filled in. So there's no, if Skype's not there at launch, people are going to just rip it apart. So it's got to be there. But then carrier support needs to be there too. And that's my big question mark right now is, given the sentiment on RIM, will Verizon, will AT&T, will T-Mobile, will any of them treat a BlackBerry 10 phone as a hero device and throw the marketing bucks and sales push behind it that it's going to really need to give it a fighting chance? Or is RIM BlackBerry brand too tarnished right now for that? I mean, Craig, I'd love to hear your take on that, being in the US and seeing the way companies are looking at the, Apple and Android and BlackBerry these days.
Yeah, so I think for a long time I've been saying that in the enterprise space, they have this movement called consumerization of IT, and some people also have a policy at their company called Bring Your Own Device, which is BYOD. And both of these policies were, in the most part, spurred on by the fact that RIM did not keep up with iPhone and Android. And so the users, the employees of the company said, look, we're tired of using this device that has no apps, it's hard to use, and this kind of stuff. We want to bring in phones like the iPhone and the Android phone that have these awesome apps on it. We can really get a lot of work done. And for many years, the IT departments resisted and they said, no, BlackBerry's the best. The Bears is the best thing. We can secure the devices. Now that's all completely changed. And there are companies like Mobileye that are eating up the enterprise space, offering that same functionality that Bears has, where they can secure the devices, they can manage them, and so on. So that movement has been going on for a long time. And as I said, it's in the most part because RIM did not address the concerns that people had since around about 2008 onwards. And it's going to be really interesting to see what RIM does about that. They think that Fusion is going to address that problem because they think that people will, obviously stop using Bears and then start using Fusion to manage all of their devices, including the BlackBerries. It's going to be very interesting to see if enterprises will pick that up, or will they just stay with the solution that they already have in place, probably with like Mobileye and ActiveSync.
So do you think, if BlackBerry 10 hits and it does the things it needs to do, nice hardware, nice software, let's say the critical apps, the apps everybody wants are there, do you think there's still will companies give them a second chance? And back to my first question, do you think carriers will will throw the money at it, because we know carriers don't want to be relegated to a dumb pipe. They don't just want to push iPhones down everybody's throat and be owned by what Google wants to do. So we've seen lots of reports where carriers have made a case for wanting that third player, and I guess it's up in the air if it's going to be Windows Phone or BlackBerry still. A week like today, maybe Windows Phone has more hope than BlackBerry, but I still think personally that BlackBerry has a better pedigree to it in enterprise and even with consumers as a brand to make a comeback than maybe Windows Phone does right now to gain consumer mindshare. But what do you think from the carrier standpoint?
I'm not sure about the carrier standpoint. I really don't know. But certainly from an enterprise standpoint, it could go either way. It could go Windows Phone, because Microsoft has really retooled that whole platform. They've got the developers on board. They've got really great hardware with the Nokia phones. They've been around longer than what BlackBerry 10 will be around at the end of this year. And so they sort of are perceived to have that maturity, where RIM is now the virgin player in the space with BlackBerry 10. But I think you are right in the way that enterprises have been using BlackBerry for the last 11 years. And so maybe they'll give them that second chance and say, look, we understand what happened. We still trust you on the enterprise space. Let's take a look at it.
Interesting. It's funny because this morning, so BGR, good old BGR, he posted a nice story, research in motion is dead. And I even messaged him and I say, ouch, did you at least think of me and feel for me when he hit publish on that post? And we both laughed. But, in that article, he made a point, or he brought in a quote coming from, a RIM insider. And I guess it was the same RIM insider who did the open letter to RIM last year, saying, RIM should just bail on BB10. It's an experiment and, go build on Windows Phone. And, bringing this up because you mentioned Windows Phone now as maybe having a shot in enterprise. And, to me, I was like, really? I mean, any RIM insider who's going to say that is probably like an ex-RIM insider now working for Microsoft, because that just caught me by surprise, right? I would think Android would be the go-to platform for RIM if they wanted to do anything outside of trying to succeed on their own merits, on the OS and apps front. But I don't know, maybe because of the enterprise side, Android in enterprise is still sort of looked at, I think, not as securely, right, as maybe other platforms. So maybe Windows Phone would make more sense there. I'm not sure. It seems crazy to me, though.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would think that if RIM was going to do anything, Android at least could be run on QNX, and they've already moved, halfway towards supporting Android in terms of apps, right? So what does Windows Phone have? RIM needs to keep its strength alive, which is BBM, and that's going on obviously in the consumer space. And on the enterprise, they've got their BES, and they need to migrate those guys to Mobile Fusion. It just doesn't make any sense in the world for them to adopt Windows Phone.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? When we say something like, again, let's just take that headline into account, RIM is dead. I think it's a silly statement in the sense that RIM isn't dead because their worst case thing, assuming, they still want to be a mobile company participating in the mobile space and making mobile devices, would be to go build an Android device. And they could build a differentiated Android device. Like if we go back to the interview I did with Thorsten Heins after he was CEO, just for a few days, I asked him that question, will RIM build Android? And he's like, we don't want to touch Android because it's, I've been in the low-cost hardware game before. It's competitive. There's no margin or profits in it. And, all Android devices kind of look the same. That was his take. But he was talking about the current Android manufacturers and the current Android landscape. He wasn't really talking about RIM customizing and differentiating Android, because I really believe if RIM wanted to, they could be the #1 Android hardware manufacturer. Like they could build the Android phones that everybody wants. Samsung might be bigger still for a while, but I think RIM could build a more compelling Android device than Samsung can anytime soon. And maybe that points to even some of the rumors we heard about Samsung in talks with RIM going back a while, is because Samsung probably knows that too. RIM would be a strategic partner there, or potential company to acquire, but probably strategic partner, I would think.
Yeah, if you had RIM building Android product or supporting Android in any way and building onto that all of their cloud services in BBM, I think you have something pretty interesting.
For sure. Even, Samsung building the hardware with RIM really building out the services. Because we know, RIM's had trouble building the high-end devices at a low cost compared to some of these other companies, right? The margins get squeezed on the higher end things. So you put both of those together, RIM could really differentiate. I mean, whether you use BlackBerry 10 as the OS and just really, they already have the Android app player. You could go next level with that integration. Or even if you, started booting up to Android and just customizing the heck out of it with a BlackBerry, experience. I mean, if you think about it, like HTC, Motorola, they've all done their own skins for Android. RIM could probably do a crazy good sort of BlackBerry type of experience skin, customize the heck out of it, keep their own security layers in there from QNX and that. And I don't know, maybe there's something there, right? But there's definitely a lot they could do, even if BlackBerry 10 fails, before RIM is dead, assuming they still have, again, the BB7, service revenue streams coming in for a while, money in the bank to keep them fighting for another, few quarters or year plus.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Kevin, I think that Thorsten said some really telling, I thought they were really telling things on the call yesterday. One, he said they want to refocus on the enterprise, but he also said that they are looking at every single option, including partnerships for the consumer space. And that, to me, that almost broke it into a black and white play where they would, I think that maybe what they'll do is they make Blackberries for the enterprise, but maybe they partner with a company and sell the operating system or license it for the consumer space, because maybe that they have discovered they're not as good as they should be. So that's a great play for them. And the other one that I always keep harping on is I really wish they'd bring back BlackBerry Connect, because that's a way to take BlackBerry experience, put it on any platform you want, have the native experience, have the BlackBerry security and push. And I really wish they hadn't killed that product off years ago, and maybe they should resurrect it, because maybe that's a saving grace for them.
Interesting. Yeah, there's definitely options. I mean, one thing we've joked about before is, again, coming back to this no compromise mobile solution and almost needing two phones today, I'm like, yeah, RIM could just sell, screw the name smartphone, go back to what they used to be, which were, BlackBerry handheld wireless devices. Sell this as the BlackBerry Smart Messenger phone, almost like the old Peak on steroids. And that would still have a massive market, I think. I would always buy one just to have it for that, along with whatever full multimedia type of device I want.
So you would want it slimmed down just to be for messaging only, without any extra apps or multimedia or anything like that. Is what you're saying?
You could. I mean, I don't know. I'm talking out loud here, but literally, some of the best Blackberries I've owned have been the simplest ones, right? Like I loved my BlackBerry 8700, which never had a third-party app installed on it, and that thing was a rock. BlackBerry stability got a little shakier over the years as we put more and more. We got that old OS to do more and more things. But that was a great device just for communication experience. So still having BlackBerry communication tools for enterprise and for the sort of mass messaging environments at low cost could be pretty compelling, alongside whatever else they do with the next gen OS.
So, I would totally buy into that. I think because I carried two devices. I still have my 9930 and an iPhone. But I think just the appeal of having a device. Kind of like a stripped down BlackBerry in a sense that didn't have, the movies and the even, photos or camera or anything on it. It was just solely for messaging purposes, I think, so you can yank it out and do your quick message and toss it back in your pocket.
And battery life, like even in the States, AT&T I find so crap in places like Miami and that. So I switched back to Edge, and then, I'm like, oh, the joys of Edge. Battery life goes and goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. Our buddy Tom was in Miami for a couple days, and he brought I think he had a 9780 with him, and he used it for 5 days without charging it, or 6 days without charging it, because he just left it on Edge. And all he did was really phone calls, emails, and texts. And I was like, right on, strip it down, big battery, give me a cheap plan just for that. I'd carry that around just because it would be a reliable backup, because whatever other full multimedia phone I have, even a BlackBerry 10 phone in a few months, there's a good chance if I use it for everything, because it's capable of so much more, it's going to be dead when I actually need it at 7 p.m. or 11 p.m. So I don't know. There could be something there.
I mean, I like the idea you and Adam have got, but there was a company that tried it already. Do you remember that? They had their own device. And all he could do was send email, and it was everybody said, "Yeah, this is going to be the next wave." I forget what that company's name was, but they don't.
Peak.
Peak. Yeah. So
I already said it. I mentioned it earlier, but Peak, that was the company.
Yeah, Peak. That's it. But they're it, right? They failed. So I guess that wasn't such a great idea after all.
And guys, remember before that, Good did the same thing. They had their own device for a while. They gave up on it.
Yep.
Then they started loading their own, custom OS on top of the Mobitex and DataTac rims way back. Do you guys remember way back in the day when that was happening?
I remember.
It was, anyway, long ago. But I'm with Craig on this one. I don't think it would make any sense. But what I think might make sense is...
Wait,
I'm
going to say why it does. That's because those companies were up against BlackBerry when BlackBerry became synonymous with keyboard phones, right? Just as Apple became synonymous with the full touchscreen. That's BlackBerry's thing. If you showed somebody a Peak phone, they would assume it was a BlackBerry. Peak was building BlackBerry's brand when they tried to market themselves because they were so small. People just saw a keyboard and said, "Well, it's a BlackBerry." So if it was a play, RIM could make it work in that thing. But it wouldn't be a growth thing. It would be a maintenance, 5 million devices a quarter just for messaging things.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah.
What's your plan now, Chris?
Yeah. Well, so I wanted to talk about what RIM actually said they were going to do, because Craig brought up the conversation, and it's, good point. He said they're going to refocus on the enterprise, and this led to some speculation about, RIM is exiting the consumer. We talked about that already. You mentioned it, Kevin. But RIM pretty much said, hey, look, we've had a lot of success selling the Curve, the 8520, the old Gemini, that first device that ever had the optical trackpad on it. It's still selling remarkably well. They've dropped the price in India to go after that market. And then Thorsten drops the bomb, not the bomb. I mean, we knew this, but he said, hey, but with that success has come a lot of competition because the competitors have gotten wise to what we're doing, and now they're using price to compete. So what he's telling us is cheap Androids are starting to kick the snot out of RIM in some of these emerging markets, and that's a problem. And they are going to go back, or they have gone back to the drawing board. And he told us that within a few weeks, we're going to start to see some new BlackBerry 7s. So I guess what RIM is telling us is, hey, look, right now in the high end, we're on hold because we have to wait until we get BlackBerry 10 out. And there's a whole bunch of work that they have to do and make sure that the user experience just totally kicks ass and that carriers support it. Then at the low end of the market, they need to just absolutely drive forward with this whole, I call it the grammatically redundant term onboarding, right? It's a gym term. So, I mean, it doesn't boarding imply that you're going on instead of off? Anyway, onboarding. So they're going to onboard all these people from feature phones, and they have to have cheap Blackberries. But not only do they have to have cheap Blackberries, but they have to take advantage of their infrastructure. So this is something where we can talk about now, right? The RIM platform, if I'm correct, is the only platform right now where carriers and RIM together can work so that the plan can be defined. So you can have the Verizon $10 social biz, or in another emerging market, you can have the whatever, maybe the $2 or the $3 a month plan, whatever it might be, that you just get BBM and maybe, Twitter or Facebook or whatever it is that market wanted, and you wouldn't have browsing. And I really like that. It sort of strikes me as a little bit odd that it took them this long to figure it out. But Thorsten described the situation where they had, I think they call it BlackBerry Catalyst software that runs in the NOC, and if somebody tries to get a browser session going, the browser's just going to say, hey, your plan doesn't support this. Would you like to upgrade? Well, genius. Like, that's called upselling. Why haven't they been doing this for years? But if they do it, it makes a ton of sense to me.
Now, Chris, I almost think your story just jogged a memory, and I swear you were in the room with me. Were we not at an interview with Indosat?
Yes.
At BlackBerry World 3 years ago or 2 years ago?
It was 3 years ago, I'm pretty sure.
And all the Indosat guys said was that. They said, all we want from RIM, the reason we brought out so many people from Indosat to this BlackBerry World was to try to convince Jim and Mike to get us down to like $100 BlackBerry that we could sell for dirt cheap, sell data plans that only gave BBM and I think they said Facebook at the time. And then after that, upsell everything each month. So you want web browser, $5 more. You want Twitter, extra $1. You want to open up a different app, an extra $2. And they said, if we can do that, we could we could post numbers in Indonesia alone that would just trump what other people are doing globally still, almost with some like Apple at the time, right?
Yeah. They want $100 smartphone, and they said they could do 10 times the volume of what they're doing at the time.
Exactly. No, and moving too slow, right? Now we're starting to see it get pushed harder.
Yeah, so Indosat must have done some custom work, because the way I understand it, in Indonesia, if you subscribe to BlackBerry service, you can do it on a day-to-day basis. So some people might just subscribe for the week while, they're not in school, or they are, whatever it is, whether they're in school or not in school. They might turn their BlackBerry off for the week if they're studying for exams, because they don't want to spend the money. And the way they subscribe on a day pass or a week pass or month pass is they just send an SMS, and it's automatically activated. Now that's user generated, and it makes a whole lot of sense to now bring this into a highly automated fashion and have a browser session just queue you up and say, hey, you don't have browsing in your plan. Do you want it? This is the charge, accept it. Boom. I mean, carrier billing. Like, this should have been done years ago. But if RIM implements it, they are still the only platform who can do this right now.
Yeah. No, it's something for them to work with. I mean, now I guess the question is, does that continue in a BlackBerry 10, or that's strictly a BlackBerry OS biz type of environment where that actually holds true?
It would seem pretty stupid to throw away that advantage in a world of BlackBerry 10. But that said, you're not going to sell a lot of BlackBerry 10 devices in Indonesia.
No, but I mean, at some point, you're going to have BlackBerry 10 low-end phones, right? At some point, it's going to make sense to build cheap hardware. Well, maybe not. I mean, I guess if you need dual core, it's going to take maybe a while before you get cheap BB10.
Yeah, it'll be, I think, you figure 2 to 3 years, the cost curve will drop down and everything will be BlackBerry 10. But in the meantime, they've got BlackBerry 7. They've pretty much they've purposefully stopped pretty much all development on BlackBerry 7 OS. And they're just going to crank out a couple of low-cost devices and, keep onboarding people. I hate that term.
Whoa, intense. We're just going to take a quick break and thank our sponsor, Audible. Audible are purveyors of fine listening material in book form. Why read a book when you can listen to it? You're busy, you're commuting, you're on your BlackBerry, you're tired of staring at a computer screen all day, your eyes are sore. You just want to listen to something great. Audible has lots of great stuff to listen to. I used to commute an hour, 2 hours every day to and from work. I couldn't read while I was driving, at least not safely. So I listened to audiobooks. They have everything. If you're waiting for Game of Thrones to start season 2 on HBO, you can go to Audible, download it today, listen to it. You're good to go. Anything you can imagine, from fiction to nonfiction, from the classics to the latest bestsellers. And the best way to start for the CrackBerry Nation, they are providing a free download. If you go to audiblepodcast.com/crackberry, hit the button, download a free book, try it out. You will absolutely love it. Now, back to your show.
I really hope they don't stop that BlackBerry 7 development before they give me some updates and software for this $2,000 BlackBerry I have in my hand. This could be a good segue into talking about this phone, unless we want to finish up with any conclusions on the earnings calls. What do you think? Time to move on, or should we make a final statement?
I think we should segue now before we get carried away.
No, let's conclude. Let's conclude the earnings call stuff.
Let me give you a concluding thought. The stock is trading at around $13 or something like that, and it's trading actually up a little bit today. I know people wanted us to talk about why is the stock trading up. I think it's trading up because we already knew that there was bad news coming, that RIM wasn't well positioned over the next 6 months, but just the way that Thorsten addressed it so clearly and was so honest, brutally honest, I think people realized that RIM has their sorry, I was almost about to say a bad, not family friendly word. They have their stuff together, and I think they, more than that, we thought they did in terms of disclosure. So that's probably why the stock is up. The other thing I wanted to say on the stock is that trading kind of tangible book value range basically means nobody believes RIM is going to continue to make any money going forward, even if their earnings fell apart from here and they only made like $2 or $3 in earnings a year. If you put any kind of reasonable multiple on that, that implies confidence that RIM is sustainable. You end up with a significantly higher stock price than they have today. So To me, I think that what's going on here is the bottom for the stock. I wouldn't have thought that yesterday, but just given the reaction in the market, I think the stock's bottomed out, and we'll see what happens. They better not screw up BlackBerry 10, or then it has not bottomed.
Wise advice. Don't screw up, Rim. Don't screw up.
Chris. Good job.
I think part of what happened today also, Chris, is bad media reporting where somebody went out and said, Rim's going to go up for sale. And then people got excited. Just bad media reporting. So, okay. I mean, my conclusion, and we'll move on, is just like, again, nothing's really changed strategy-wise. It's all about BlackBerry 10. You know, an earnings call is looking at behind us, and behind us doesn't matter. The numbers this next quarter don't matter. What matters is BlackBerry 10 when it hits the market, has great hardware, great software, closes the app gap, and Thorsten and whoever else had better do some, you know, sucking up to Verizon, AT&T, etc., to get them to give them a chance to push BlackBerry 10 as a hero device and put it on some store shelves as soon as you walk in. And I think if you can do that, RIM can make that comeback. If they get shut out for whatever reason, it's going to be really, really, really hard, you know. But we'll see. In the meantime, nothing but optimism still, and BlackBerry World's coming up soon, so maybe we'll get a little bit more insight into BlackBerry 10.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
But next, I want to talk about my Porsche designed BlackBerry. So I've actually been using this. Yeah, show off. Showing off is the fact not only do I have one, but Miss CrackBerry has one, and I think Jay-Z and Beyonce have them. So that's 4 of us at least. And I've received some BBM requests from people who have the pin 2AA. Which is pretty fun because I know if you're trying to lie to me if you have a BlackBerry or a 9981 or not. Because when I add you to BBM, I see your pin and I'm like 2AA. You're legit. If it's not 2AA,
when you added Jay-Z, was his 2AA?
I can't talk about that. Hover. You know, you don't screw with the hover. But but overall, I'm working on this written review. So I started the written review, I think, at the end of February. To be honest, I mean the post has been sitting half done. And I haven't finished writing it for a couple reasons. You know, one, not a lot of people are actually buying this phone. So nobody's been emailing me saying, Kevin, where's the 9981 review? Because it's not hitting a mass audience. And 2, I'm a little bit up and down on it. I mean, obviously it's a bold 9900 in terms of the hardware specs on the inside. It's same processor, same display, same everything, memory, etc. It's actually a lesser of a bold 9900 when it comes to software because I am still running version 7.0.0.579 software, while you know a 9900 could be running 7.1 with pretty new versions. And this software still feels like an old bold. Like the 9900 software's gotten so much better with more releases. So with this, I feel like I'm running an old 9900. And going to the States again for a couple of weeks and using AT&T, this phone fell apart on AT&T. Like it did not do well. And Erica's 9900 or 9981 was useless in Miami. Like seriously, your touchscreen quit working, and we had to do like 4 battery pulls a day between being on AT&T and this version of the software. So I'm kind of waiting to see if I get some new 9981 software. Before I really give it a final review. Because as of right now, I'd have to say the 9900 is a better phone. You know, just it's a better experience on it. But
is there any difference, Kevin, other than the physical package?
The only difference is the theme that comes preloaded on it is the Porsche theme. So there's no regular theme. You have to use the Porsche one, which has this nice wallpaper and different icon sets, unless you load a different theme. And the other big difference is there's a built-in Porsche design ringtone, which if you want to hear, I can pull it up. It's pretty exciting.
Yes.
Do it.
It's a $1,500 ringtone, I guess.
And you get the theme for free with that.
That's right.
Oops, I got to crank my volume. Wait,
it's a custom charging pod too, right?
Uh-huh.
That's it. You're listening to it. Porsche design, ringtone.
Should have a voiceover from Craig that says, "I spend too much money on my phone."
So really, this phone, like when I give it a review, I'm not giving it a review score. And I read some reviews that other sites did of the 9981, and they gave it scores out of 10, and none of them were that high. But in my head, I'm thinking, you just don't review a phone like this with a number. It's not a value proposition here. You know, for the cost of this phone, I could buy a 9900, an iPhone 4S, and a Samsung Galaxy Nexus and own 3 phones for the price of 1. So it has nothing to do with value. It has nothing to do about feature set compared to something else. It's a luxury item, right? It's purely emotional. It's saying, I want something that's exclusive, that's expensive, I can afford it, I want to feel good about myself knowing I got this expensive phone. And that's why you're buying it. And it's kind of like buying an expensive car. You know, sometimes if you're smart and you're going for value, you buy a Honda Civic. If you're going for, I got too much money to spend, you buy yourself a headache of a car like a Range Rover, and then you're at the shop every week, right? You didn't buy it because it's a better vehicle for reliability and stuff. It's what you wanted. And that's really what this phone is, right? It's not a value proposition device. All that kind of negativity I'm throwing out there said, I really like this thing. And you know what's funny is you do get noticed. I mean, especially if you go to restaurants and stuff, I guess in the service industry, people see phones all the time. So if I leave this on the table when I order, you know, guaranteed the waitress, the bartender, whoever will always be like, what is that? Or they'll be like, is that the Porsche Blackberry? Because I guess, you know, phones are just hot these days, right? People are all into mobile devices. And it's crazy. You know, even Erica at the airport flying to the States the other week, you know, people were stopping her. She's just sitting by the gate, you know, BBMing and talking on the phone. And people were stopping her, and she had people were taking photos with her. So, you know, if status and sticking out in a crowd is what you want, completely worth the money. Buy it in a heartbeat. And from that standpoint, I mean, once I have it, I'm like, oh, even though I've got my white 9900 right here, and it's such a hot phone, and I love the white 9900, you know, that exclusivity kind of makes me want to have the 9981, and it reminds me of, it brings back the feelings I had when I was, you know, getting a lot of pre-release Blackberries, you know, like the original 9000 Bold and the, you know, the original Javelin and the original 8520. And I always used to feel so like awesome having that because nobody else did. So now I get it with a publicly available phone, which is, you know, less troublesome than pre-release devices that don't technically exist yet. But there have been some little annoyances. You know, one, battery door, yet another design that's not exactly perfect. You have to kind of peel it off and then peel it on and really push it around. Once it's good, it holds fine. The buttons, you know, around the side here, I actually had like the call button and end key. They go right to the end, and they're not really finished on the edge. So I pulled it out of my front jeans pocket, and one of the buttons popped half off and almost made me cringe. And it, you know, the device has a slightly unfinished look, which is cool, but then that's sort of a hindrance of it is, you know, there's some attention to detail there, not super impressed with. Same thing with the keyboard backlighting. You know, this is something I read about in our forums too from members, and I've seen it on the 2 9981s I have. The backlighting isn't consistent, so some of the keys seem to glow brighter in the dark than other ones, and it's annoying when you see it because that's all you sort of can fixate on. But 9981, I mean, it is, yeah, it's a 9900 that's really expensive. It's really cool. Now that I have one, I want it, but it's hard to make the recommendation to anybody to go buy it. It's ugly. Any questions?
Nah. What's next on the agenda?
Is it as ugly in real life as it is on the video?
Is it what?
Is it as ugly in real life as it is on video?
It's not ugly in real life. It's a style, Adam. That's like saying you're ugly. You have an Adam look about you. You look good.
You can say I'm ugly. I don't care. Nobody's paying $2,500 for me, buddy.
In the 1980s, people used to build cars that looked like boxes. Well, I think that's kind of what's going on that phone there.
But it's kind of like some of the older Bang & Olufsen stuff too. Like it's a bit more of that, you know, steel, black, boxy. Like some, you know, a lot. And actually, the style's interesting because I've seen people love it and I've seen people hate it. And actually, hot girls love it. Guys hate it, and I just don't understand it. Like it's some weird dichotomy that's going on here. So I mean, who do you want? Adam's advice? Do you want Adam's out of shape white guy advice, or do you want the hot girl advice? And the hot girls have all been loving it. So
let's see. Hi, I'm walking around with a $2,500 phone. Do you want to go out with me? Absolutely.
That's what it is. Oh, I didn't put it together.
Why wouldn't I?
Oh, let me just check the time on my Rolex. All right. Okay.
Right. Let me show. Let me see what my Panerai says.
All right, what's next on the agenda, guys?
Go for a ride in my Range Rover.
Oh, in the comments, Canuck67 says hot girls can smell money. All right. See, I'm just naive. I'm a sucker. Shit. All right.
That's an understatement.
Carry on.
I should show you the new sunglasses I picked up, and you'll say I'm a bigger sucker than Google. They're not even on Google, but Google Maybach sunglasses and check out the Monarch 2s if you can find a pair.
Kevin, I knew you were a sucker when you showed me that clock you bought for I don't know how much at CES.
Right, the clock, the $500 clock app.
Exactly.
That was kind of Kevin taking one for the CrackBerry team. That wasn't me. Really. Somebody had to buy it and see what you got.
Justifies all these purchases. Like there was a big open discussion about who's going to buy it. So you make it sound like, well, somebody's got to do it. Okay, I guess I'll do it.
That's true. It was actually more like Kevin's walking through the RIM booth. Hey, Kevin, we were just talking about you. Why? What's up? Well, we saw this app at App World for $500. We said, who the heck's going to buy it? Then another RIM employee says, I bet Kevin would. Sure, let's do it.
It's like those Life cereal commercials. Mikey, he'll eat anything.
Yeah. He likes it. He likes it.
All right. So everybody listening, don't buy a $500 clock app from App World, and buy a 9900 over 9981 unless you're really you know the type of person you are, right? When it's not a bad thing, because I've got a lot of that in me too. But you know who you are if you want the phone, and reading the review doesn't change that. Nobody who doesn't want a 9981 is going to read the review and say, "Oh my God, I not want the 9981." And anybody who actually wants it doesn't give a rat's ass what I have to say about it, because they're just going to go buy it anyways. So that said, there's some really beautiful photos coming with that review, so you will see it next week. I promise.
Yay!
Somebody else talking. I'm tired. And we're probably right.
Well, you got Playbook 2.0 here on the agenda. I mean, we haven't done a podcast since 2.0 came out. Why don't we talk a little bit about that and what it tells us BlackBerry 10 needs to still accomplish? Because there's a lot of improvements, but I mean, the messaging app is not there. The messaging app crashes a fair bit. It's not just always there running. There are other little issues.
Okay, stop and let's talk about that. That's my biggest issue with Playbook 2.0.
Yeah,
is I love what I'm seeing, but when that hits a phone, that email client needs to be always open, always there, instantly accessible. If I have to open that email app and wait for it to load and resync, this is CrackBerry Kevin saying, that will be a phone I won't be able to use.
Yeah, it takes too long to open. I mean, the app crashes sometimes it'll crash, when it's in the background, and then it's like 10 seconds before you're able to even look at what's in your list. And it has to be rock effing solid when they launch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Silence.
Android apps are there, which has created a huge awesomeness in our CrackBerry forums that people sideloading Android apps without having to root. Oh, that's another topic, right? RIM did a statement about jailbreaking your Playbook and how they frown upon it and it avoids warranty. But there's not really a need now from a consumer standpoint, because now we have Playbook OS 2. We can just put on all the Android apps we want anyways.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a big thing. I mean, I wrote a whole post about why I love my Playbook more now, and a big seller in that was the Android apps, because there's not those go-to apps. I use a very specific set of apps on my my phones and my tablets and everything, and it was nothing I would expect to be in App World or half of them to even have apps. But once the ability to run the Android apps came along, I mean, it was a huge thing, because all these apps that I had wanted on my Playbook forever, I could finally load them on there and sideload them. And I'd say probably, 99% of the ones that I tried worked. So it kind of opened a whole new world, and I found myself carrying my Playbook around a lot more. And honestly, the native PIM apps, I mean, I don't really go to that much. The calendar every now and then, but I very rarely use the messages app on the Playbook now, even though it's there. I'm still old school Gmail and the browser guy, which I have been all along. So, but I definitely think it's a whole new thing, and I get a lot more love to my Playbook now than I have in the past. So it makes me happy.
A lot more Playbook love. Me too.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I 100% agree with you. Like this, a lot of the stuff that on the Playbook now, like it's not going to work on a phone device. Just the waiting around and the crashing and certain
so we
things.
should. One thing we could talk about too is that we haven't had on a podcast. I posted those images a few weeks ago that came to us in a really weird way that gave us kind of a sneak peek at BlackBerry 10 on a phone. And I mean, the story behind that document was weird, right? So it was literally a marketing company sending it to a marketing company, recruiting people for hiring actors for BlackBerry 10 commercials. And it was, I forget the name of the companies now, Digital Fish? No.
Yeah.
I wrote it into a forum post. It was one of the big marketing companies. I forget. Oh, Digital Kitchen, and then Razorfish. That was it. So it was Digital Kitchen, who a lot of mobile companies use. RIM, I think Google does, etc. Obviously, RIM briefed Digital Kitchen, and with stuff. And my take is they supplied some probably BB10 screen caps. Whether they were legit or not, you don't know. But there's some in there that have RIM employees' names showing off the email clients on BB10. The call display screen, which even shows things like video chat, which is pretty cool, built into the caller display. Shots of the home screen. And I'm like, that have way too much attention to detail for a marketing company to just dream up, right? If you look at the specific icons they're doing, the way the pictures album had like the photo on the front from within the album, or the alarm clock icon was showing the next set time for the alarm. That's stuff that guaranteed came from RIM. And then we saw there were some live tile looking screens in there. But just to finish the story, that was Digital Kitchen then took those screen caps, Googled around the internet for images of BlackBerry 7 phones. We saw some of the images in that PDF came from like one of the BB Indonesia review of the 9900 or the Torch 9860, I think it was. They just took that photo directly, layered on a BB10 cap. And then that presentation was given to Razorfish with a whole bunch of BlackBerry 10 kind of stuff, looking for, setting the tone for commercials and actors and that kind of thing. So it was really weird to see that kind of document because it wasn't RIM produced. It was obviously for personal, private, intra-corporate consumption, not for external public consumption. So it didn't have to be accurate. Obviously, the hardware is just old and that kind of thing. But still, that was literally our first glimpse of what we think might be legit BlackBerry 10 concepts. And, some of the things in there, it's like, well, is the email always open or not? And the thing that dawned on me was one of the screen caps had sort of a live tile looking screen, more like Windows Phone than I would say Android widgets. But then my thought was, well, hey, maybe this is a new way to minimize an app. So let's say something like email, or I think they were showing the weather app on one of them or something like that. That could be, if you think about the Playbook experience, right? You open the app, it goes full screen. You close the app, you just get a minimized version of the full app. But what if you started developing apps with two states, a full state and then a minimized state, which is essentially a widget? And then you had the ability then you always had the ability to have that app running open. That solves all our problems and makes a way better user experience. So you would give developers the ability to have the full app open, an ability to program in an abbreviated state with the key details, and then that mother effing thing has the option to always be running or closed, but even if running, who cares? And then you're just going to have your email stuff running like that. It'll be minimized apps that are already open, running as widgets when minimized, so you get really useful bits of info, instant open, full thing, no waiting, and then it solves all the problems. And judging by the comments, Kevin got it. Kevin is 100% right. It just makes too much sense to be wrong. So I think that's what it is.
It's a beautiful strategy. I think that is exactly the way that RIM should move forward. I really hope that's what they're doing. The caveat I'll just say is, it's enabled by QNX, right? QNX is the operating system under the covers that makes all this happen. But you still have to write perfect apps, like perfect. The apps have to be good. So that's what I really want to see RIM nail, because QNX can only do so much. The app has to be written correctly.
Amen. So let it be. Chris Umid, so be done.
Yeah.
Kevin wins.
So the blog post title, or for this podcast, or the podcast title is going to be RIM is not dead, Kevin wins the internet.
You got it.
It'll be the most viewed podcast in mobile podcast history.
All right.
Yay.
Yay. Adam's laughing. He doesn't look so ugly when he laughs. You should smile more, Adam.
Kevin, the world's most fabulous man, after me.
Okay, guys, we're probably running out of time because we have, I think, a hard 60-minute stop. The thing we want to talk about really quick is BlackBerry 10's coming up, BlackBerry World's coming up, which this year is also featuring a side conference called BlackBerry Jam, which is like a mini dev
BlackBerry
conference.
10 Jam.
BlackBerry 10 Jam. They're not at the same venue, so it's 2 different venues, 2 different tickets and passes.
Oh, wow.
We're still going to BlackBerry. Yeah, this needs to be clarified a little bit, I think.
I didn't even know that.
BlackBerry Jam attendees are going to get BlackBerry Alpha device prototypes, which are basically BB10 phones running Playbook OS, but they're the prototype BB10 phones. So actually what that device is it's BlackBerry Colt. The Colt that, was first rumored to be a QNX phone that then got scrapped. And, that is what that device is. I'm just going to say that and I'm right. And that actually, Adam, if we go back to CES, we had the first hands-on with that phone because it was mounted in the QNX Porsche at CES in Las Vegas on the dashboard sideways. Because I swiped the screen on that mother effing thing, and it moved like the Playbook OS.
That's it. But you can tell. If you don't believe us, you can tell if you watch that the whole interview Kevin did in the Porsche when the camera pans around, it kind of hangs up on that little device on the dash, and there was a specific reason for that, but
because we knew it. We're like, look at it.
But it did, because I feel like every time we panned past it, it was like in slow mo. We just kind of like hang on it for no relevant reason, and then that was that. So
all the time. But it's like we knew it, right? And the second I sat in the car, I just looked at how bright that display was. There was a Playbook in the dashboard. It looked good. I look up, I'm like, what the hell's that display on the dashboard? And I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, that's a BB10. That's a QNX device. Guaranteed it is. Swipe, and then, it was...
and you got your hand slapped, and that was it.
I got my hand slapped pretty hard, and, So go watch those videos, because it's like, oh, you want the first hands-on? Kevin touched it. Yes. But on the internet again.
Yes.
So will they do a QWERTY BlackBerry 10 phone?
Yeah, but probably not at the start. The only thing is, it's going to be weird, because it would literally be... There's no need to have a row of navigation on that device, right? So it'll just be a keyboard taking up real estate. You're not going to have a trackpad or a back button or menu key. And, that was the dumb thing with the BlackBerry Blade pictures that surfaced, was they made a really cool looking slider device that looked awesome. But then it was technically, and they called it, this is going to be the first phone with QNX. And it was just kind of a marketing thing. But then I was like, you guys obviously don't know anything about the BlackBerry OS, because they're not going to put the menu key and back key on a BlackBerry 10 phone like that. There's no usage for it. That hasn't happened, right? It's not in the interface with bezel gestures and the way it worked. So I was like, that's a bit of a faux pas on their part, but it was great looking hardware that got me excited. I mean, that'd be a great BlackBerry 7 device. Like, that'd be an amazing BlackBerry 7 device. But I do think they will do at some point a keyboard BB10, and I think they'll probably do it sooner than later to appease the core. But I wonder about fragmentation on apps, because RIM has stated that they're really, well, I don't know if they stated or I've just heard, I think that was something talked about at DevCon Amsterdam there, that they're really conscious of fragmentation, and they want to keep the proportions the same, and that for app developers, so they don't start splitting everything. And I think a QNX phone with a keyboard would have more of a 1-to-1 type of screen size than an HD kind of proportion. So then I don't know what you do for devs. Like, do you just run black bars at the top of your screen and then get this kind of cut-off app experience on a full QWERTY BB10? Or do they do something else fancy to kind of fix that problem? Or else you're going to run into the issue that, people are going to build for the Playbook and the phones that are all the HD proportion, and then you're going to have less apps on the keyboard BlackBerry 10 device, and that wouldn't make sense. They needed some way to address that, but I think they'd have to build one.
Yeah, it's a good question, but in the meantime, I think that they're getting slaughtered in the all-touch market, as Thorsten talked about. I think they need to improve their virtual keyboard even more. I think they really need to get to best in class on that, so that people don't mind switching. Because at this point, there's no way I can see myself wanting to switch to an all-touch BlackBerry.
Right. I have hope, though, because put it this way, they need to deliver a good enough experience that makes Chris Umiastowski and CrackBerry Kevin want to switch to a full-touch BlackBerry. That's how they win back in the mobile market, right? it needs to be such a good full touch that you use and you're like, damn it, I'm using this thing and I'm going to love it. And I don't know, there's lots of weird rumors too. Some people are saying the touchscreen typing on BB10 is going to have some sort of tactile feedback, which, it'll be interesting to see if they do anything like that, because we know what happened with the Storm, which I don't even want to mention on this podcast.
Please don't swear on the show, Kevin.
Swear on the show. So, I mean, we'll see, right? But I don't know. I mean, the interesting thing is, yesterday aside, RIM's been really quiet, which I take to mean RIM is working their mother effing butts off to work on BB10. Playbook OS 2 out of the way. It's all about BB10 right now. And everybody's working to get it done. So, in fact, RIM is not dead. And BB10 phones will be good. And Blackberry world, it'll be interesting to see what the excitement levels are like, right? I don't think we're going to see too much BB10, but maybe some. I don't think we'd see hardware. Maybe we'll see these new low-cost curves, but nobody will be excited about that. Maybe we'll just learn more about everything going on. I'm sure we'll see NDK stuff with BlackBerry Jam, though, so that'll be maybe the exciting part for us. See what kind of apps they're capable of doing and how easily, and that's it. I don't know. Well, that'll probably be our next podcast, unless there's a big reason to do one between now and then.
Sounds good.
Cool. Guys, is that the show or what?
That's it.
That's it.
Pack it up.
We made it within the hour, guys.
RIM is not dead. Kevin wins the internet. And thanks to our sponsor, Audible, for, I guess, sponsoring the show. Go to audible.com/crackberry and download some awesome free stuff, or get some discounts, or get the app, or I forget. But it's
Audible
good.
rocks.
Audible.com/crackberry. That's it.
Bye.
Oh, wait, I forgot. I gotta say, and Renee, are you there? Can you do our exit stuff? Yes.
Kevin can't do it.
I'm out of practice. I forget.
You can follow Kevin at CrackBerry Kevin. You can follow Adam at AZeiss. You can follow Chris at CU Mistowski. And you can follow Craig at iBanyan. You can follow all of us at CrackBerry. You can visit mobilenations.com/shows for all of our podcasts. And if you haven't already, you go to your podcatcher of choice and you vote CrackBerry the absolute best podcast in the universe, because Kevin wins.
Oh,
Kevin wins the internet.
Cut the video. I showed off my abs there. No, I don't. All I was going to say is let's rock and roll this, guys, and Kevin out.